Hello, welcome back to FromSoft Serve. Today we're looking at a Oolacile. I don't know why I said that so weird, but there is a new update to the mod 0.95.2, which includes a big overhaul of Oolacile, which I worked on all day yesterday. I had somehow not realized that Oolacile was kind of busted basically in my mod, and I think it's because DSR shader overhaul, once I swapped the mod over to that, being built off that, basically I forgot to look I forgot to look at Oolacile and be like, ah, shit. So yeah, it broke it pretty badly, and it was super dark and terrible. So yeah, I've had to manually go through. I threw out basically all of my work on Oolacile prior, other than like textures and light maps. I kept that work. But as far as like what was shadow casting, what was being reflected, what was the light ID, the fog IDs, I basically set everything back to default and started from scratch. And so that's what you're seeing here. Looks nice. It's correctly bright. You have this beautiful reflection of the entire arena, which is great. And we have the double Sanctuary Guardians, which they're delightful. Oh, wait. Oh, I must have already killed the Sanctuary Guardian, because otherwise it would have a fog wall here. Interesting. All right, well, let's head this way, because kind of inside baseball shit, but that's what you guys are here for, right? Honestly, Oolacile is like a fucking mess to work on. By default, just in this area alone, this little sanctuary, they have like so many different collisions. They have a separate collision just for these rocks here, or little steps, for no fucking reason. I mean, you can have a separate collision, but they had them on separate settings, and then they had different light settings for everything, and it like a fucking mess. And so, yeah, I had to work pretty hard to convert this over to different light IDs to look a little bit different than it used to, and remove the baked lighting so you get the shadows, and obviously turning on the shadow casting for all these objects, because by default they had none, and it was relying only on baked shadows, which is, obviously normally fine, but for here it just bathed the whole scene in darkness. So you still have your mushroom lady Elizabeth. All the homies love her. The amount of times that this zone just completely shifts its shadows to a different X and Y coordinates, and then the transition looks fucking awful. There's so many of those cases. It's awful. Like here, it's hilarious. There was literally used to be a line here that just was a completely different color, because they also had huge issues here. And this is a known issue for FromSoft, where the fog ID, which handles sort of how it's shaded. So like here you'd see it'd be like this really big blue hue for a lot of the distant geometry. And then, you'd have one other piece that's like super green, and you're like, well, that looks fucking awful. And so I've had to unify the fog ID that's being used and make it look cohesive, right? And obviously shadow casting here on the bridge. And then you can basically remove the baked lighting so you get the actual shadows on it. And then I think there's no, actually that reflection looks pretty good. Okay, because I was looking at the reflection as well. The specular level for the map. How does the sky look? And so my goal is basically Darkroot Garden, because obviously this is Darkroot Garden in the past, right? The Royal Woods. And Darkroot Garden is very bluish and dark, because it's in the future, and that's how it's basically shifted, right? After the Abyss took over, and that's kind of what you were left with, right? And so the main color palette I was going for is sort of the reds that are in the sky, and then you have undertones of blue for sure, because obviously that is what it ends up becoming, but the main shade is green. It actually reminds me more of all the homies out there. The OGs will remember when I turned Darkroot Garden into Brightroot Garden. And so that's kind of the inspiration a little bit from the look here. And you'll see the fog really pops the fuck off, which is great. And then I have the subtle depth of field, and I just really like the look. I don't know. I think it really has a unified look now, where before it was like blue here, and then it's red here, and then it's green there, and then it's shoved together, and there's like 3 different fog IDs, and it was way less cohesive than even what Darkroot was. So it's just fucking strange. Let's see if my DSR gadget is still active. Hey, yes it is. No death. Love to see it. Yoink. Let's go see Bloodborne guy. Let's see what he's up to. What's up, homie? I will kill you for your outfit, actually. Give me your fucking outfit. Oh, it's come to blows, has it? Yes, chap, it has. And your whatever fucking crossbow that is. That thing looks awesome. Fucking marvelous Chester. Give me your fucking outfit. It's John Bloodborne is his legal name, technically, if you look at his birth certificate. Thank you. All right, we're going to swap to that now. Snickering top hat. You'll love to see it. Chester's long coat. Sorry, the D-pad is unreasonably loud on the Xbox controller. So yeah, this was a lot of editing of the fog IDs, the light IDs, just a complete overhaul of how they work. And, oh yeah, so here's another funny thing. You can see when you pan the camera down just in this spot, the collision is actually incorrect. And so it actually is going through the geometry of the floor here, or the ground. Where normally, when you're on a normal collision, it will stop correctly on the floor and then do this, where you can see your player, your character. But here it's incorrectly set. So I'll have to look at that later. Collision editing is still pretty touch and go for Blender Soulstruct. So I kind of, I try to keep away from that anytime I can. The other thing I fixed on most of the rocks, I forgot on this rock, but you can see how the bottom portion, like kind of like the lip around the rock here, is actually translucent. And that is because of an actual MTD setting. They did it so it like kind of blends in better with the grass, and like in fast motion, most players won't notice it. But if you pan the camera, you can see that it's you know, semi like translucent or transparent. I think translucent means it's not like you can kind of see through it, but it's not full visibility. And then we have the actual town of Oolacile from here. So let's go through, because I did kill Artorias, although I cheesed him by his AI wasn't turned on. But I needed inside his arena, and I didn't. I mean, I had time to fight him, but this character is actually not leveled up at all. I just have a fully upgraded weapon. But yeah, so here's the inside of the Colosseum itself. The Colosseum is royally fucked. Like there's like 16 different pieces to it, and they look weird in DS Map Studio even. And then when you pull up like the individual model files, like they're fucked as well, and it's a absolute fucking nightmare to work on. It's a royal mess. So I think I've done the best thus far in terms of working on it. And that's why I just started from scratch, because I was like, I don't want to hold over or bring over any of my previous mistakes. The other big upgrade to Oolacile, so I have been adding some parallax occlusion mapping to like the brick style surfaces, which there's quite a few of them. I have more to add. But the thing I've actually noticed, and this I'm going to actually bring over to my other areas I'm working on, is these wall surfaces ended up actually, they basically had originally had a 1K resolution albedo texture, or albedo, and then their normal map was weirdly like 256 by 256. Quarter resolution. Crazy. Or it was a 2K albedo, and then their normal was, 512 by 512. And just really low res, and it looked terrible. So I generated new normal maps for these walls, so they look suitably high resolution. So if we head out towards the township, you can still see the sky up there. I also had to mess with the big like Anne Orlando mountain wall here. It's not perfect, but I had to brighten it because it was just completely like dark. So you have parallax occlusion mapping on the floor here, which is actually brought from Undead Berg. That's the same texture they're reusing. We do have shadow moire issues, but also the shadow resolution in Oolacile is just lower. A similar thing happens in Dark Souls 2 in certain areas. Like Iron Keep, you will just have lower resolution textures. And it's kind of like outside of being controlled. You can't really control that, unfortunately. I guess we'll head down the official route. And yeah, you'll notice a little tone map problem I have where I messed up the collisions just slightly, where it gets brighter, and I mean for it to only get darker when you get farther down. That's what I like about removing the baked lighting, is that now you realistically have sun shadows coming up from up here, where before they would just bathe the whole thing in darkness. And so now you have actual shadows coming down, and you can actually look all the way down and see the shadows being cast. Oh, Jesus Christ, I got stuck in a fucking building. Holy shit. But yeah, I think it's a lot more visually pleasing, at least for me, where you can now see all the sun shadows that would be coming in naturally for Oolacile. But the darker you, or the deeper you go, I do end up darkening the tone map settings. And so let's head all the way to the bottom, because I had to manually set those statues down there to shadow cast and remove the baked lighting, which I think actually looks pretty sick. Oh, now this building was another interesting story in that it actually, I had to, because the problem I had with this building is that on the inside, the shadows and the light were going right through it, which means it didn't have back face. It had back face culling turned on, so the back faces were being culled to save geo rendering cost, right? Because it's just less polygons if you don't have to render the back face of this. Problem is that means the light and the dynamic shadows will fly straight through it because it's not an actual like solid surface as far as the engine is concerned. Here's the problem though. This model file is this entire interior building, and it's one of the larger model files in the entire game. And also in terms of geometric complexity and like these little bricks. And there's actually a lot more geo that is in this building than would be in a similar size thing in the base game, like an Undead Berg. This has a lot of extra like actual geometry, where most of the other buildings in Undead Berg were just flat surfaces and they would have like normal maps, but that was mostly it. But this is actually, you can't even open this building in Fiverr Editor. You can't open it. It won't open. Now, I have run across some other ones that are like that too, but usually I can work around that. And normally I can open them in Blender and then edit them this way. Not so much for this one. You can open this in Blender, but once you try to save your edits, it goes, oh, there's too many triangles. There's too many vertices. You need to lower that somehow. And yeah, that never worked. So I didn't want to like go too far into it. So basically, I ended up just turning off the shadow destination for it, so that way it's basically darkened and then the shadows don't make their way through, and it's a cheaper way of doing it. But I was like, such is life, you know? And upcoming here is one of my favorite kind of rooms that I stumbled upon. So because I have shadow casting coming in from the sky, you can see the shadow being cast here where my head is. But that was actually turning off these torches. So the trick with DSR shader overhaul is you actually have to open this model file and then tell it for, because the wall here is its own surface, these little archways, and then these other like pillars are their own surface. And basically I went in and said, don't use a light map, don't use a light map, don't use a light map. And then the torches work again. That is weirdly the trigger. And where without DSR shader overhaul, it's not that way. So it's weird, but it ended up working to where we get nice, honestly beautiful torch illumination. Like this is some of the most beautiful torch illumination in the entire game. And the way it's reacting to the normal maps on the walls and like the bricks and the, oh my God, it looks so good. And the shadow casting that's coming from the sun over there. I wish I could have the point lights themselves shadow cast, but that's just not, that's not in the cards, unfortunately, for Oolacile. But I love how gorgeous it is. And then this one torch really selling the sort of abyss ooze style shit, and then this fucking banana milkshake looking abomination of fucking chains, and like what even is this design? That's a fucking Resident Evil enemy, 100%. Yeah, let's head down here, because this is suitably dark down here, as that was a problem I had in many earlier versions where I had ended up somehow fucking up this dark area. I don't remember how. Now there is one quirk I have not actually figured out down here, at least. I gotta look at the params again, because there's something really strange where this bonfire doesn't actually illuminate that much compared to other bonfires. And I even like told it not to use the light map in the area, and it's still just not really illuminating the room at all. And I don't have control over that bonfire illumination. Like, it's not a point light. Like, it is technically a point light, but it's not a point light I can control. That is actually like into the SFX that controls that. So it's kind of weird. I need to look at the, because usually it would be controlled by like the tone map settings and whatever the luminance is set at. But as you can see, my player lantern is pretty bright, so like it doesn't seem like it's really tamping down on that too much. But yeah, so you still have it being suitably dark in this area, as should be the case. It's sort of like Tomb of the Giants, but the DLC version of that. And then you do see their little heads out there, so that gives you a little heads up. But yeah, so that is the biggest part of the DSRR 0.95.2 out now. And I fixed bugs in Anor Londo that were in the last video, which had to do with shadows. And I fixed a couple things in Undead Burg. I actually ended up creating a new bug that I just found before recording this video. So I'll probably put a patch out soon that fixes... I won't tell you what the issue is, but we'll see if anybody reports it. It seems pretty noticeable, but we'll see. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this quick run through Oolacile, and let me know what you think it looks like, and or how it looks, and have you tried the mod? Are you gonna try the mod? Are you waiting for 1.0, which I personally would recommend not waiting for 1.0, but I respect anybody who is. I'm having a lot of fun working on this, and now I'm going through and looking at normal maps from other maps I've already worked on, and going, shit, are there a lot of normal maps I need to upgrade? Now that I noticed how low resolution some of these were in Oolacile, I was like, oh fuck, okay. And I actually already have found, and that's what's included in this current version of the mod too, is a good handful of new normal maps for Undead Burg, and then I reverted some of my normal maps that were too aggressive, you know. And so yeah, I'm now looking at normal maps again. And obviously Parallax, I'm still in the process of adding that to more viable surfaces where it makes sense. And yeah, also I just appreciate everyone. I appreciate the love on the last video. It's like at 6.6 thousand views, I think, at the moment. Putting the big titty lady was the best idea I ever had for a thumbnail. Shocker that large chest ahead Guinevere was good for a thumbnail and for people clicking. Shocker. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.